Is Las Vegas in trouble? The reason, obviously, our decline in tourism numbers, and it's not by just a little.
Everyone has heard the headlines lately. The number of visitors coming to Las Vegas has been declining. For a city that built its reputation on constant crowds, bright lights, and non-stop entertainment, that kind of news naturally catches attention. But there was another small detail in a recent news report that seemed just as interesting. Take a moment to look at the scene behind the reporter. The streets and public spaces appear much quieter than what many people normally associate with this city. For a place once famous for its constant movement and energy, the background looks surprisingly calm. And that raises an interesting question. It almost seems as if it is not only tourists who are showing up less often. In some moments, it even feels like local residents may not be gathering in these areas the way they once did. Of course, a few seconds of footage cannot fully explain what is happening in a city as large and complex as Las Vegas. But small moments like this sometimes make people pause and wonder whether something about life in the city is slowly changing. So, what has changed? Behind the bright lights and famous resorts of the Las Vegas Strip, there seems to be a reality that many visitors rarely see. And when taking a closer look at everyday life in Las Vegas in 2026, the picture of the city may look quite different from what many people have long imagined. For many years, Las Vegas seemed like a fairly attractive option. A sunny city, no state income tax, and at least in many people's memories, homes once appeared quite affordable. For many families, the idea of selling a house in a more expensive state and moving to Vegas once sounded quite reasonable. But when looking at today's housing market, many people are beginning to feel that the picture has changed significantly. Over the past decade or so, home prices in Las Vegas appear to have risen at a pace that makes quite a few people raise their eyebrows. Three-bedroom homes that once sold for fairly comfortable prices in the early 2010s are now often listed for several times more. According to many market reports, the median sale price of a single-family home in Las Vegas now sits around $480,000 to $485,000, close to the highest level ever recorded in the area, nearly $500,000 for a house. For those who remember when a home in Vegas could be around $200,000 or even lower in the early 2010s, today's prices can feel shocking. And then there is another factor that makes the situation even more complicated: mortgage interest rates. Even if home prices stopped rising, today's interest rates could still make monthly payments quite heavy. Some reports show mortgage rates in recent periods hovering around 6% or even higher, noticeably above the low-rate environment of just a few years ago. That means for the same house, buyers may now pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars more each month than they did before. Many of them say they once believed Las Vegas would be an ideal place to retire. The original idea was simple: sell the house where they currently live, move to Nevada, and enjoy life with a lower cost of living. But when they start looking at today's home prices, some people seem to realize that the math is no longer as simple as it once was. One person once said that he had always thought Vegas would be the place he would move to after retirement, but with today's home prices, he may simply stay where he is. In the past, when people talked about Las Vegas, one of the things often mentioned was that the cost of living seemed fairly comfortable compared with many other major cities in the western United States. There was no state income tax. The weather was sunny for most of the year. And for a long time, the overall cost of living appeared significantly lower than in places like Los Angeles or San Francisco. It sounded like an ideal place, right? At one time, that really was the case. Las Vegas attracted many people thanks to the almost free perks offered by casinos and entertainment venues. According to what many people remember, these places often provided cheap meals, free rooms, or free shows to attract visitors. The idea was quite simple. Guests would receive many perks, but businesses hoped they would stay longer and spend money on entertainment throughout the city. Those perks made many people enjoy visiting Las Vegas frequently. Some even moved here so they could enjoy those benefits almost every day. However, many of them say the situation today seems different. The cost of living and entertainment in Las Vegas appears to have increased, and many promotions that were once very common no longer appear as often as they used to. Because of that, part of the city's old appeal may also be fading. As a result, some people have expressed concern that the city may be entering a period of major change compared with the Vegas they once knew. Gradually, many seem to realize that the financial picture in Vegas may be a bit more complicated than they first thought. Part of the story lies in expenses that people often do not consider at the beginning. For example, there are HOA fees, the fees charged by homeowners associations. In many neighborhoods across Las Vegas, these fees can range from a few dozen to several $100s per month, depending on the area and the amenities included. For people who are used to living in neighborhoods without HOAs, this can come as a surprising addition to the monthly budget. Then there is homeowners insurance. With the unique desert climate and the rapid growth of the city, insurance costs in some areas appear to have increased in recent years. This is the kind of expense that many people do not pay much attention to until the bill actually arrives. Some even raise concern. Seniors are losing their house and going homeless because of the rising cost to live in this city. Las Vegas has turned into East LA. Thinking back, we think this guy got a point. Another detail that many residents mention quite often is the cost of transportation. Las Vegas is a very spread out city, and in many areas, getting around almost completely depends on a car. That means gasoline, maintenance, repairs, and car insurance can sometimes become a significant part of the monthly budget. And then there is another factor that is somewhat unique to Vegas. After all, this is still an entertainment city. Like someone once said, why would people want to live in the middle of a desert anyway? Vegas is a tourist city. Do you agree with this guy? Let us know in the comment below. When I was a medical student doing my rotations in Vegas, I remember how bad the desert heat was. It would get to 115 plus in the daytime, and when I was ready to leave work, it would still be 101 at 7 p.m. Then, sometimes when I couldn't sleep, I'd walk outside to a cool 98 degrees at times. Seems like we had the AC on 24 hours a day sometimes. Vegas heat will be confusing to you. They have something we never get: low humidity. You may not feel terribly hot, but you will need more water than usual, and you won't feel any sweat, so you won't realize just how hot it is. It is extremely dry and extremely hot. Super easy to get heat exhaustion, heat stroke. After hearing these comments, you might wonder whether the desert climate was once considered an advantage. It may sound strange, but there was indeed a time when that idea seemed true. On the map, the city appeared to sit in a place where the sky was clear most of the time, the sun shined nearly year-round, and rain did not seem like something people needed to worry about very often. For those who had spent decades dealing with freezing winters in northern states, the idea of living somewhere with constant sunshine could sound very appealing. No shoveling snow in the morning, no driving on icy roads, just sunshine and the wide-open desert sky. But for many people, that was mostly the imagination of those living far away. During the summer, temperatures in Las Vegas frequently exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Those numbers can sound impressive when you see them on a weather report, but the real-life experience can feel a little different. Many residents say that on the hottest days, stepping outside in the middle of the afternoon can feel like opening the door to an oven. And when the temperature outside reaches that level, daily life seems to depend almost entirely on one thing: air conditioning. In many other parts of the United States, air conditioning might simply be a convenience. But in Las Vegas, many people say it feels more like an essential part of everyday life. Homes, cars, stores, offices, almost every space requires a cooling system running constantly. And that naturally leads to another familiar topic: electricity bills. During the hottest months of summer, some residents say their electricity costs can increase significantly compared with other times of the year. When the air conditioner runs almost day and night, the monthly bill can sometimes make people take another look at their budget. The extreme desert heat also seems to affect how people live their daily lives. For several months of the summer, outdoor activities during the daytime can become quite limited. Simple things like walking around the neighborhood, gardening, or sitting on the porch in the afternoon sometimes have to be moved to early morning or late evening instead. Geographically, Las Vegas sits in the middle of the Mojave Desert, a region where natural rainfall has never been something that occurs very often. For many decades, the development of the city appears to have depended heavily on one major water source in the region, the Colorado River. This river flows through several western U.S. states and eventually forms one of the largest man-made reservoirs in the United States, Lake Mead. For many years, this lake has served as a critical storage tank for major cities in the region, including Las Vegas. However, in recent years, many reports suggest that the water level of Lake Mead appears to have dropped significantly compared with previous decades. Satellite images and environmental reports often show white rock lines exposed around the lake marks left by former water levels. To adapt to this situation, water management agencies in the region have begun implementing various conservation measures. Some rules regarding lawn watering, outdoor water use, and landscape design appear to have become stricter than before. In many neighborhoods, it is becoming increasingly common to see front yards replaced with decorative rocks or drought-tolerant plants instead of the wide green lawns that were once more typical. For some people, this change can feel somewhat interesting. A few residents even talk about it with a bit of humor. They often say that living in Vegas can sometimes turn you into a water-saving expert faster than you might expect. But beneath those jokes, some people are also beginning to think about a larger question: what the long-term future of the city might look like. For those who are considering where to live for the next 20 or 30 years, the stability of resources is often an important factor. A city may seem very attractive right now, but many people still want to know that it can remain stable and sustainable for decades to come. Not everyone thinks about this right away, because when people mention Las Vegas, the first image that usually comes to mind is still bright boulevards, tourists from all over the world, and a city that always seems full of energy. But behind those lights, the city's economy appears to rely quite heavily on one very specific sector: tourism and entertainment. During periods when tourism is strong, Las Vegas often looks like an economic machine running very smoothly. Large hotels stay busy, restaurants are crowded, and thousands of people work in various service industries. For many residents, this creates the feeling that the city always has job opportunities. However, some people who have lived here long enough realize that an economy heavily dependent on a single industry can sometimes create fairly clear cycles. When tourism increases, everything seems to work well. But when tourism slows down due to economic conditions, changing travel habits, or simply natural market cycles, jobs in the service sector can be affected quite quickly. For many Americans over the age of 55, this may bring back a familiar feeling. They have seen cities that depended heavily on a single industry, whether manufacturing, mining, or tourism, and they understand that when that industry slows down, the entire local economy can sometimes slow down as well. Another factor that many residents often mention is the income level of many service sector jobs. Las Vegas creates a large number of jobs, but not all of them offer high wages. Many jobs in hotels, restaurants, or tourism services provide stable income, but that income does not always keep up with the rising cost of living. You see, Las Vegas may be a place where you notice a lot of economic activity around you, but sometimes your wallet does not feel it as quickly as you might expect. Looking back, the issue is not that Las Vegas lacks job opportunities. The city still creates thousands of jobs each year. But many people seem to wonder whether the average income in some industries can truly keep up with the rising cost of living in the city. This may not be the first area that comes to mind when you think about Vegas. But no matter where you live, education still matters, right? For many years, the public school system in the area has often been compared with other large cities in the United States, and education rankings sometimes suggest that the region has not really stood out. This does not mean there are no good schools or dedicated teachers. In fact, many families say they have met very passionate educators. But when looking at the system as a whole, some parents seem to feel that the overall quality of education may not reach the level they hope for their children. Part of the story may lie in the size of the local school system. The Las Vegas area is served by the Clark County School District, one of the largest public school systems in the United States. With hundreds of thousands of students, managing such a large system can bring significant challenges. Many parents say that classrooms can sometimes be quite crowded, and educational resources appear to be shared among a very large number of students. For families who have previously lived in areas with smaller school systems, this can feel quite different. Some people say that when they first visited schools for their children, they noticed that the number of students in each class seemed larger than what they had experienced in the past. This is not necessarily unusual in large cities, but for families who consider education a top priority, it can still be something that makes them think more carefully. And then there is another option that some families begin to consider: private schools. Of course, private schools can offer a variety of educational choices, but they also often come with fairly high tuition costs. For many middle-class families, once you add together housing, living expenses, and other costs of life in Las Vegas, private school tuition can sometimes become a significant financial decision. Las Vegas is a large city, and like many major urban areas in the United States, different parts of the city can feel very different. There are new neighborhoods that are quiet and well-planned, But there are also areas where residents sometimes say they have to pay closer attention to security. Some local reports suggest that in certain areas, property-related incidents such as car theft, burglary, or similar situations seem to occur more frequently than many residents would prefer. This does not mean the entire city is unsafe, but for people who are considering moving here, information like this can sometimes make them think twice. In many neighborhoods, people seem to be investing more in home security systems. Door cameras, alarm systems, and motion sensor lights. Things that were once seen as optional features now appear to be increasingly common. For people who have spent their entire lives working to buy a home, build savings, and create a stable life, the feeling of safety is often not just an abstract idea. It is the feeling of locking your door at night and knowing the neighborhood around you is relatively peaceful. It is being able to leave home for a few days without worrying too much. Because of that, when families consider moving to Las Vegas, this factor sometimes appears on the list of questions they ask themselves. Not everyone believes Las Vegas has a serious safety problem. Many residents still say they live in very quiet areas and have never experienced any issues. But in a large and rapidly growing city, the feeling of safety can often depend heavily on the specific area where you live. For people who have spent many years choosing places to live for their families, this can bring up a familiar thought. When you move to a new city, you are not just choosing a city. You are choosing a neighborhood, a community, and a place where you hope to feel comfortable and secure for many years to come. One more thing that sometimes appears in discussions is the rapid growth of the city itself. As Las Vegas expanded quickly over the past few decades, new neighborhoods appeared almost overnight. While growth can bring opportunity and development, it can also mean that infrastructure and community services sometimes take time to fully catch up with the population. Some residents also mentioned that the contrast between different parts of the city can feel quite noticeable. Certain neighborhoods have modern homes, parks, and well-maintained streets, while others may feel older or less developed. Because of this, people who are considering moving here often spend a lot of time researching specific areas before deciding where they want to live. There is also the simple reality that Las Vegas is a major metropolitan area that attracts millions of visitors every year. Large tourist destinations naturally experience a constant flow of people coming and going. For some residents, that level of activity can feel exciting and full of opportunity. For others, it can sometimes create a sense that the environment is more unpredictable than in smaller cities. Still, many locals emphasize that daily life in most residential neighborhoods remains calm and ordinary. Families go to work, children attend school, and communities continue to grow like in any other large American city. In the end, the experience of safety in Las Vegas often comes down to one simple factor: choosing the right neighborhood that fits the lifestyle and expectations of the people who call it home. If you look at the development history of this place, it seems that it was built first and foremost as a tourist destination. The city grew rapidly thanks to resorts, entertainment centers, and service industries designed to serve visitors. Large hotels, massive entertainment venues, themed attractions, and endless nightlife experiences became the core of its identity. In many ways, that is exactly what created the famous appeal of this place. People from around the world come here looking for excitement, bright lights, and a break from their everyday routines. However, some longtime residents sometimes say that after living here long enough, you may begin to notice something quite interesting. The city often seems designed to impress visitors, rather than always putting the daily lives of residents first. This is not always obvious right away. When people first arrive, many feel that the city is full of energy and opportunity. Restaurants, events, shopping areas, concerts, and entertainment venues. It seems like something is always happening somewhere in the city. At first, this constant activity can feel exciting. Many newcomers enjoy the feeling that the city never seems to slow down. But after a few years of living here, some residents begin to notice a subtle shift in perspective. They start to realize that many of the attractions, events, and services that give the city its vibrant image are primarily designed for people who are only staying for a short time. Most of the major entertainment areas, nightlife activities, luxury dining options, and high-end experiences all seem focused on creating memorable moments for visitors who may only spend a few days in the city. For tourists, that works perfectly. The city delivers exactly what they came for: excitement, spectacle, and variety. But for residents who live here year-round, the experience can sometimes feel a little different. Some locals say that when you step away from the most famous parts of the city, everyday life begins to look much more ordinary. The dazzling parts of the city are often concentrated in specific districts, while residential areas function much like any other growing urban region. Over time, a few residents begin to feel that the most carefully designed parts of the city were never really intended for them in the first place. Another factor that sometimes appears in local discussions is the direction of new development. As the city continues to expand, many large projects still seem to focus on attracting more visitors, new resorts, entertainment venues, and tourism-related infrastructure. From an economic perspective, this strategy makes sense. Tourism remains one of the most powerful engines of the local economy. However, this can occasionally leave some residents wondering where long-term community needs fit into the bigger picture. Questions about infrastructure, neighborhood development, public services, and quality of life improvements sometimes become part of the conversation. For people who plan to stay in the city for many years, these things can matter just as much as entertainment and tourism. Because of this, some residents quietly ask a simple question: is the city truly designed for people who want to build a long-term life here, or is it still primarily shaped by the needs of short-term visitors? The answer may not be completely clear. Las Vegas continues to evolve, and the balance between tourism and everyday living is something that the city is still navigating as it grows. There is something interesting about choosing a place to live long-term in the United States. When people are younger, many tend to think about job opportunities, climate, or home prices. But as they move into middle age, priorities often begin to change. At that point, another factor starts to become more important: the sense of community. It is the feeling when you step outside your home and recognize a few familiar faces on the street. It is when your neighbor knows your name and you know how long they have lived there. It is the sense that your neighborhood is not just a row of houses, but a place with stories, history, and relationships built over time. And this is where some residents in Las Vegas sometimes say things feel a little different compared with many more traditional cities. Las Vegas has been one of the fastest growing cities in the United States for several decades. Hundreds of thousands of people have moved here in search of new opportunities, new jobs, or simply a fresh start. That creates a city that is dynamic and constantly changing. But that same speed of change can sometimes create a rather unique situation. Many residents say the population of the city seems to always be in motion. New people move in every year, while others leave to find places that better match the stage of life they are in. As a result, in some neighborhoods, you may see neighbors changing fairly often. In many small American towns, neighbors may have lived next to each other for decades. They watch each other's children grow up, they know the history of the neighborhood, and they share common stories. But in a fast-growing city like Las Vegas, things seem to move faster. People move here for economic opportunities, change jobs, or simply want to try living somewhere new. That brings energy and diversity to the city, but sometimes it can also make it harder to build a stable sense of community. Of course, many neighborhoods in the city still have very close-knit communities. Friendly neighbors, local clubs, and community activities still exist and create a sense of connection. So, perhaps, just perhaps, this may not be such a bad place to live after all. Another factor that some residents mention is the structure of many newer neighborhoods. Large master-planned communities and rapidly built housing developments can sometimes feel different from older American towns that grew slowly over generations. Streets may look modern and well-organized, but relationships between neighbors may take longer to form because so many people are new at the same time. Some locals also say that the work schedule of the city can play a role. Because Las Vegas relies heavily on tourism, many residents work in hospitality, entertainment, or service industries with irregular hours. Late shifts, weekend work, and changing schedules can sometimes make it harder for neighbors to build regular routines together or participate in community activities. There is also the simple reality that Las Vegas has become a place where many people come to try something new. Some arrive hoping to build a career, others come for business opportunities, and some are simply curious about experiencing life in a unique city. But when a place attracts people who are still exploring their next chapter, it can naturally lead to a population that moves more frequently than in older, more settled communities. And yet, this does not mean a sense of community cannot exist here. In many parts of the city, residents are still finding ways to build connections through neighborhood gatherings, local events, and shared spaces like parks or community centers. Over time, those small interactions can slowly turn unfamiliar streets into places that begin to feel a little more like home. For many years, Las Vegas has been seen as a symbol of opportunity and excitement. The bright lights, Famous resorts and constant flow of visitors have created the image of a city that is always full of energy. However, when looking more closely at everyday life, some people have begun to wonder whether Las Vegas today is still the same as the familiar image many remember. Rising home prices, higher living costs, the harsh desert climate, and changes in the local economy seem to be making many people think more carefully about living here long term. This may simply be a period of transition for the city, or it could be a sign of a larger shift taking place. What do you think? In your opinion, is Las Vegas truly changing, or is this simply another perspective on a city that has always been constantly evolving? Share your thoughts in the comments below.